Hey cat people and people that are into the paranormal and other things as well. So today I thought I'd do something else different. Well, sort of different and sort of not. Because as you know before, fair enough, last week it was all on creatures and obviously I went to creature shows and there will be a lot more of that coming along. But this week I'm going to talk about why or how I got into the paranormal, but mainly how my friend, also Simon, got into the paranormal too. And basically it will be going over or relaying over personal experiences. So it will actually give me an idea for a type of subject for next week's live. For people's personal experiences with the paranormal. Have you experienced it? Do you believe in it? If so, why do you believe in it? Or what have you experienced? So, you know, it could be anything at all. So, yeah. Well, that'll be for next week's video, for the live. But for now, I'm going to do a... well, not really an interview, just ask Simon about his personal experiences of the paranormal, and then it will understand why we have a large interest in the paranormal too. So I'm going to switch the camera, and the cats are hanging around because in an hour or so they think it's food time. Now I would have went out to do some paranormal, but somebody's back and legs are giving her some jip. Believe me, they hurt like fudge, basically. I know fudge doesn't hurt, but yes, I could be saying several swear words, which I'm not going to. But yeah, they are hurting quite a lot today. Could be the weather being absolute pants, but I don't know. But anyway, get rid of all the boring stuff out of the way, and let's get on to something a bit more interesting. So, what I'm going to suggest, I'm going to put this camera onto Simon, but if you wish, in the comments, if you'd like a story read out on a video, why don't you put something down in the comments or email me a story? And if you wish, then I can read it out and you can tell me if you want people to know who it's from or be anonymous. Doesn't matter, does it? But it's all interesting at the end of the day, so just see how it goes. Anyway, on to the next bit of the video. Hi, this is Simon.
Hello.
And he does a bit of a daft channel himself, but I suppose it's his experiences and his thoughts on certain subjects. It's up to you whether you want to subscribe or not. It's up to you. And he goes under the name of the Pale Horse.
No, a Pale Horse.
Or a, sorry.
A Pale Horse.
A Pale Horse. There you go. So, yeah, I can always stick his... Yep, that's the word. The link in the description. And unfortunately, he has this habit of putting his camera on portrait instead of landscape. But that's up to you lot to tell him off for it. Because I've given up saying something. Anyway, let's get on with the next bit. Right, personal experiences. And I'm guessing this will be some of the reasons why you're into the paranormal is because of obviously personal experiences. Now, we all know that Oldham is well known to have quite a lot of things going on because obviously it's a very old part of the area and it was a very big working area. So we can only assume this is why there's been so much paranormal stuff going on. But anyway, on with your personal experiences.
Okay, so you can...
Yeah, this is to do with shadow people.
Okay, so what did we say was the first one?
It's under shadow people, isn't it? So, small cloud.
Oh, the small cloud, right. Okay, so...
Excuse me.
That was... we bought something from a second-hand shop, Healthy Aged or something like that. And it was like some kind of South American god thing. I don't know. It had like the body of a man and the head of a bird. And we put it up in the
Sounds
hallway.
like a totem or something like that, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, it will have been something like that. I don't know if it was South American. It could just as easily have been Polynesian. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So we put it in the hall, and then, like, it didn't happen the same day, but a few days later, something like that, I was in bed one night, just going to sleep, and I saw this, like, where the door is, the corners, you know where the hinges are? That side of the door, it was like this little black sort of mass, and it was starting to come through in the top corner where the door is. And it looked like smoke or something like that, or a shadow, and I could see it coming through. It didn't come through all at once. It sort of poured in like smoke, like I say. And then when it was in, it sort of went to the ceiling and it started swirling like that. It was like it was a piece, like a piece here and a piece there, like the most prominent pieces, and they were like swirling around themselves. So, you know, obviously it freaked me out. This was one of the earliest experiences of that kind. It's not the first though. I'll talk about that in a minute. And as I was watching it, it was just on the ceiling swirling, and that's basically all that happened. But it's like the temperature in the room dropped, and I was scared, obviously, because I didn't know what it was. So this went on for quite a while while we lived in that house. Eventually we dealt with it though, and you know, that's basically that story. I have seen it since though, but I'll come back to that in a minute. You can put a pin in that. So you want to go on to the next one? I think it was the shadow in the room, was it?
Yes, shadow
Right, so
in the bedroom.
this happened in another house. It's happened here as well, actually. About 2-3 years ago now. Woke up in the middle of the night, and there was like a dark area of the room in one of the corners, and like I could see like what something swaying from side to side like that. And then as I'm looking at it, it was like I could see a shoulder and a head with like a hood on it, and it was really tall. It was like the room. This room's got like, you know, high ceilings. I think like 9 feet. I think we measured it at, and it was almost touching the ceiling anyway. So yeah, it was in the darkness, and it was just like swaying like that. And then one time, I think it was the second time I saw it. It was on one side of the room, and this little cloud thing was on the other side of the room. And I'd not seen the cloud for like 4 or 5 years at this point, so I don't know why that came back into the picture. Again, it was like the temperature in the room dropped, and it was like a feeling of dread almost. But I got rid of it. I won't go into the ins and outs of how I got rid of it, but I did. I haven't seen it since, so no, good, because I don't want to see it.
Fair enough. Nosferatu.
Right, I only called it Nosferatu because that's what it reminded me of. We used to have, I think they're called Venetian blinds, the kind of blinds that are like that, and you pull it and they go like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, one night, it was me, my sister, and there were 2 or 3 people there, other people there as well, can't remember, it doesn't matter. And we were watching TV. Whatever it was we were watching, doesn't matter. And it's like we all looked at the window at the same time, and as we looked at the window, it was like from one side to the other, this thing, like it was all hunched over like Nosferatu. If you ever seen the vampire film Nosferatu, you can, these shadows like that. And it floated from one side of the window to the other, and it was like we'd all seemed to look at the same time, and then we all looked at each other, and then somebody said, "Did anybody else just see that?" So somebody jumped up and ran outside, and there was nobody outside. It was like 8 o'clock at night in winter. Nobody was around. There was a street lamp outside, so I was thinking, oh, maybe somebody messing about walked past the window, and it was the light shining on them, but there was nobody there. The street was abandoned, and it was like where our door was, we had steps, and you couldn't really get away that quick because it was a long flight of steps. So yeah, I call it Nosferatu, and I think the thing in the bedroom possibly is the same thing, because it kind of fits the same sort of
Profile.
The same look profile. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Sleep paralysis.
All right, yeah. Well, this was in the 90s, and I was a big fan of the X-Files at the time, so I don't know if it was like a psychological thing. I don't think so though. But what happened was 4 or 5 times I woke up in bed, obviously, and couldn't move. And then there was like a weird buzzing sound in the room as well, like static or something like that. And then this one time in particular, I remember it happening and I couldn't move. And I got this feeling that something was in the room with me. And then all of a sudden it was like something grabbed my legs and just dragged me out of the bed. But like where my bed was, there was a wall at the end of the bed. And it was like pulled me through the wall. And then it was like I had my eyes shut and I felt like I was being pulled on like, what's that material a tent's made out of called?
Oh, is it? Oh, canvas.
Something like that. It's like, you know, that noise when you drag something over canvas really fast. That was in my ears. And then all of a sudden I woke up and like I was sitting up in bed and the dog was there like looking at me wagging her tail. And I said to her, what just happened? I don't know, I asked the dog though, it's not like she's going to tell me.
Yeah. You'd be famous with lots of money if your dog could have talked at the time. Ghost cat.
Right, this happened sometime in the early 90s. My grandma sent me to the Chippy one night, and she had like an alleyway across the road from where she lived, and it got dark because there were no street lamps. So I walked about halfway up, and then all of a sudden I saw this little cat on the ground, and it had really green eyes. I remember that, and I thought, oh, you know, stroke the cat. So I bent down to stroke it, and as I went to stroke it, my hand went through it, and it just seemed to like disintegrate, but its eyes were still there, and they stayed for like, I don't know, it felt like ages. It might have only been a minute, but they were still there, like glowing at me. It was really strange.
Sounds like something similar to the Cheshire Cat,
Yeah,
but the smile was left behind though, not the eyes, really.
But my mum told me she had the same experience. You know, whenever, I don't know, before, but...
Fair enough. And let's get on to the next one. About the ghost in your bed.
Oh, yeah. Don't know, this was in the 90s as well. A few of these happened in the 90s. I just got in bed and I was going to sleep, and it was like something got in bed with me. And then I felt hands go like that on my chest. So like I jumped out of bed because obviously it shocked me. So that's basically all that happened with that.
Okay.
So, going back to the totem thing though.
Yes.
I've been looking into this and I've been watching other people's videos, and I think that might have been an example of what's called an egregore, which is spelled Egregore, and that's when things that are worshipped, or like there's like a society of people that believe in it. It's like it kind of gains a life of its own, so to speak, if you know what I mean. So I'm wondering if that's an example of that, because this, whatever it was, I can't remember what it was. I couldn't describe it now properly, really. But if that was some kind of religious item, then that would have had people praying to it, possibly. Or maybe use sacrifices to it if it's from South America. And that could, like, have granted it some kind of power.
Been absorbed into the actual item.
The actual item, yeah. Or it could be just that it was cursed. I don't know. I'm half guessing, Anna, really, by going off other people's videos and just...
Yeah, it's just your basic assumption, but you just don't know. You're only just learning from other people's experiences that what you can relate to your own. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Like I said, just watching other people's, there's a particular one to watch, and he talks about things like egregores.
Yeah.
Which it's an interesting subject. And just to finish off, I did actually see a UFO once as well. It happened in the middle of the night again. Some kind of weird humming noise woke me up outside, and as I looked out the window, I could see this like sort of how would you describe it? Like the shape of an egg almost. It wasn't Mark, by the way.
Oval.
Yeah, oval shaped, and it was glowing. It was like a yellowish glow to it, and it seemed to like go around and further than I could see, and then come back in a big circle like that, and it did about 3 times, and then on the third one it just shot off and was gone. So, I mean, I do have other experiences, but I don't want to, you don't want it to be a 9-hour long video, do you? So
no, it can be a bit tedious.
Oh, thanks.
I'm only kidding. But sometimes if you go on, people will be sat there. I was like, what time is it? Is it time for bed yet?
Oh, did I tell you the one about the shadow? And this is definitely the last one. We'd wrote it down and you not asked me about it. This happened in the morning, actually. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. Can't remember when it was, but it doesn't matter. And it was summertime, so it was light outside. And I'd woken up and I was still in bed because it was, like I said, it was 6 a.m. So I didn't really want to get up, but I couldn't go back to sleep. And I was looking like just towards the window, and I was looking just not at anything in particular, but I noticed there was this little faint black like mark on the wall, like a shadow, and I couldn't work out what it was being cast from. And then as I was watching it, it was like it sort of pulsed and then it went small again, and then after a couple of seconds it happened again, and this kept happening, and it was getting just bigger and then bigger, and then it was slightly, growing just slowly, very gradually. It was almost like a heartbeat even. That's how I describe it. If you've ever seen the x-ray of a chicken's egg forming and you can see the little heartbeat going,
Yeah.
it was a little bit like that. It wasn't as fast, and it kept like increasing in size, and getting darker as well, and darker and darker. But it freaked me out too much. I jumped out of bed and went downstairs. I couldn't watch it anymore after so long. After maybe like the first 10 minutes, I'd had enough. So that got me out of bed anyway.
But it did. It's enough to scare anybody, innit? All right. Thank you for your little stories.
Well, I hope interesting anyway.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Right. I've decided I'm going to do my account of the paranormal. And it'll give you a better understanding of why I'm basically into it myself. I'm going to take my glasses off because I can't be doing the bloody things. Right. So I've written things down to prompt me for what to say. Obviously, it's not going to be much because it's only a short bit of paper. It's just basically just subheadings to remind me of what I want to talk about. Because anybody that knows me knows I've got a brain like a sieve. So I have to write things to prompt my mind. Right, whether you believe me or not, that is entirely up to you. But this is my personal experiences. And if you don't believe in spirits and other things going on, that is entirely up to you. I'm not going to turn around and curse you and give you a load of grief about it, because at the end of the day, you don't know about any of these things until you actually experience things yourself. But sometimes it can explain my calm demeanor, because at the end of the day, when you experience quite a few things, and like I've said over and over again, sometimes these things don't always happen all at once. They could have like a pattern of maybe doing something in a day and then maybe doing it for a few days or maybe a few hours, and then it could stop and there'd be nothing for weeks, months, and you will forget about it until something else happens, and then you're sort of reminded about what's around you. So these are little experiences that I've had, and yeah, it gives you an idea. So this one is called The Shadow on the Wall, and this is in my old house. And basically I was in my bathroom, and it was in quite a long corridor in the house I was in, and I was just stood facing facing towards the wall and brushing my teeth. But I happened to be looking down the corridor because obviously the kids are in bed. Well, my kids were in bed, and it was only me on my own with my children, because I was basically looking after my children on my own then, and brushing my teeth. And I happened to look down the corridor and seen something that was darker than dark. So the corridor light was off, but obviously there was light behind me, which was the from the bathroom. but there was no reflection from through the bathroom window because it actually backed on to other houses and there was no light coming through the windows. And basically brushing my teeth and looking down in the corridor, and I seen something that looked like a sort of black mass, and it was going towards the top, and I could see it going across and going across, and then just disappeared into the bedroom, which happened to be the room that I was sleeping in. And I sat there, well, not sat there, stood there watching it, and it was like brushing, 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 and I'm looking, and it's like, I've got to sleep in there tonight. And I thought, nah, stuff it, and carried on brushing my teeth. Because by then, things were going on that I was just like, well, I live here, and basically it's going to have to cope with me, you know. So, let's see. This is in the same house. And I had a friend over, and I was sat, I had actually a bigger laptop than this one, and watching a film, sat on the bed with a friend, and door shut to obviously get the noise out because the children were in, but I think they were in the front room downstairs, but I heard what sounded like what I thought was one of the kids running upstairs, because you know what kids are like, they'll run upstairs and start coming upstairs, mum, 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 he's done this, he's done that. So when I heard the thunder of feet running up the stairs and the door flying open, my friend nearly jumped through the ceiling. And then I just turned around and laughed at him, and obviously there was nobody there. And it's when I turned around and said to him, oh, by the way, my house is haunted. And from the expression on his face, I think he found out right away. So obviously I looked in the corridor, nobody there. And obviously with floorboards, you can hear if somebody scurried into another room, and there was absolutely nobody. There was nobody there. So it was like, ooh. So that's another experience I've had. There was one in the same house again, and my youngest son, I happened to be on the bus, and it was just me and him, and I always kept things from the kids because obviously I didn't tell them anything, because if you talk about something, it puts an impression in a person's mind. So if you say something, like I wouldn't say to the kids about what I thought was going on in the house, I just kept it to myself. And if somebody said something, I'd be like, yeah, but just don't say it in front of the younger ones, because I don't want them to know, because obviously children can have like night terrors and all the rest of it, and be pretty scared. But anyway, my youngest son, I think he must have been about 5 or 6, and I was sat on the bus, and I think we were going home from from the town centre, and he turned around and said to me, Mum, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, I see things. I'm like, right. And then he actually described a little boy, but he said that he couldn't see it all the way through because he could see through it, but he mainly seen the outline of the little boy. I'm like, okay. Yeah, he went on to explain that was the reason why he didn't like the bathroom door shut, because when he was having a bath, I'd have to either sit in the room or be sat in the next room while he was having a bath, because he didn't like being upstairs on his own. And he said that's why he didn't like being upstairs on his own, because it worried him, it upset him. So I'm like, okay. And then I said, well, how tall is this spirit? And he said it was no taller than the door handle. I'm like, okay. And then he turned around and said that his name was Benjamin. I'm like, okay. So I'm basically just taking it in. I didn't put any thoughts into his mind. I just agreed and said, okay, okay. So, yeah. So that's about as much as they told me. And I'm like, you know, quite astonished that I was getting told this, because you don't expect, you know, this sort of description coming from a young child, you know. And it was like, oh, you know, excuse me. Let's have a look if there's anything else. See, I've got loads of stories. It's just remembering them. So sometimes it will come to me later and I'll be like, oh, I could have talked about this, or I could have talked about that. Okay, another story. I was in bed, meant to be asleep. This is when I was with my ex. And again, I'd hear something coming up the stairs. And then it's sort of like stopped outside the bedroom door. The kids were asleep, definitely. They were a lot younger then, quite a lot younger then. But I could hear something outside the bedroom door. And then the handle started turning and turning and turning. And you could just see it slowly going down. And then I'd be like to my ex, wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Will you friggin' wake up? Shaking him. Well, what's up? Look at the handle. It's moving. So, yeah, I think I don't remember anybody getting up and inspecting anything, but let's just say we were both crapping ourselves at the time. So, I mean, like I said, this is when I was quite young, very young at the time. So I was more easily scared. So, but as I got older and you see and hear things, you start to realise, you know what? I'm not going to let it worry me. If there's something there, it's there. As long as it's not doing anything that it shouldn't, then I don't have a problem. But I did have one thing. Again, this is at my other house. And sometimes, because I don't always sleep at night, I was having a sleep during the day, probably about an hour. And I remember waking up but couldn't move. But I couldn't see over the covers to see what was there. But I could just feel like there was like a pressure down on the bed. And I really, really wanted to sit up to see what it were. And I kept saying to myself, sit up, sit up, sit up, sit up, sit up, sit up. And I kept saying it over and over in my mind. And in the end, I sat up and there was nothing there. And it was just like, wow. So I was wide awake when it had happened. And it was just like, yeah. Anyway, I hope these stories haven't bored you. Like I said, I was meant to be going out somewhere, but the weather has been pants and it's actually playing up on my joints at the moment because they are hurting. And unfortunately, trying to use oil to oil it, it's not getting me anywhere. Hence the joke, joints. So anyway, yeah. So like I said, I'm going to do a live next week. And if you wish, you know, you can, people can come on and talk about their experiences, or as well, maybe on a further video, I could read out some stories. And like I said, you don't need to give your name if you don't want to. And you can put that in the comments down below. Or you can do it in my email, which is all in lowercase, which is JackieGreen_3@msn.com. And you can send in your stories to me and I could read them out for you. So that's up to you. But anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, subscribe, and and remember, when you subscribe, it is totally free and it helps to boost the channel and lets me know that you've enjoyed watching it. So, I hope, yeah. It's great that all you people are all hanging on and putting up with some of my stuff. I do try and make a bit of a variety. And like I said, I try and, not everything's all one subject. It's either the paranormal or paranormal stories, or going on investigations, or interacting with animals. And I try to make it like a variety, if you know what I mean. Trying to keep things a little bit different, because sometimes if you stick to one thing, it can get a bit stagnant and boring. So anyway, thank you for all you subscribers hanging on and putting up with me, and yeah, interacting with me. I try and talk to every one of you on my in my comments, so just to show my appreciation for you interacting with me and interacting with watching the video. So thank you for watching. Bye.